Well, hello and welcome to the Biz Coach Show, hosted by My Biz Coaches and presented by the TLG Group, where we provide entrepreneurs with the edge they need to succeed. Your hosts today, as always, are David Macon, that's me, and Eric Whitmore. Eric, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, David.
Awesome. Well, hey, good to be with you today, Eric. And for our listeners out there, we're excited you joined us. We are talking about tips for weathering an uncertain economy. So we're recording this in December of 2022. And this year, and really the last few years, have been a little bit up and down, a little bit like a roller coaster when it comes to the economy, supply chain, labor, right? Everything else. And so a lot of people are starting to, think about or predict or even say we're right smack dab in the middle of a recession. And so what better topic to dive into today? So Eric, as I start thinking about, uncertain economy, and I'm thinking about, I'm an entrepreneur, I've got a small business, maybe a medium business, and I'm thinking about, kind of actions that I can take to make sure my business survives maybe this downturn or recession we're in. One of the things that comes to mind immediately for me is, keeping an eye on some key business metrics. And one that I know we look at a lot is COGS, or cost of goods sold. So maybe we start there, right? If we keep our costs down, whether that's on manufacturing, whatever business industry the listener's in, what are some thoughts that you have on maybe how we can watch that or other important metrics we should keep an eye on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, when you look at COGS and many of my businesses that I coach, or even clients at my biz coaches that we coach collectively, are often service-based businesses. That happens to be a bigger niche of ours. But one of the things we have to remind them of is that you can look at COGS, particularly in a service-based business, and depending on where your payroll lies in your accounting, it's something that you have to pay attention to, because realistically, if you think about it, you have a deliverable, and the payroll is a big component of it in a service-based business. You really need to make sure that you're factoring that in, and so that you understand and can manage your profit margins and know, like a lot of my clients don't do a great job of job costing. So they don't know what they're actually spending on payroll per job. Like, quite honestly, most software, I say most, there are some software applications out there, accounting software applications, that don't do a good job of managing job costing. And so I bring that up because it's really important, because to your point, as a KPI that you want to measure, it would be great if your software actually managed that for you.
Right.
And the good ones do. The problem is that there are some out there, I won't say QuickBooks, but that don't do a good job of that. And you really have to know what to do to make sure that you're factoring those numbers correctly. So I bring that up to really say, in many cases, often I find that clients don't know or aren't sure exactly what all goes into a job cost, or they do, like in their head, they understand what needs to go into it, but they don't do a good job of displaying that in their finances, and then consequently, that when they go to look at it, they don't really understand exactly what they're looking at. So. Yeah. All of that said, taking a deeper dive into COGS, what am I paying for things like? That's a real sensitive topic. What, the last 18 months leading up to maybe not so much the last 6 months, but the 18 months leading up to the most recent 6 months, lumber costs go through the roof, cement costs go through the roof. Anything manufactured outside of the United States was particularly China, was costing a small fortune, or at least costing a small fortune to ship it into the United States. So all of which are part of your COGS, and you really need to make sure you're taking a good look at that. One of the things I mentioned, actually literally with a client, was a presentation I did. It was a presentation I did, but we were talking specifically about during COVID, we just accepted all these price increases.
Right.
Either with shipping or with certain raw materials of our particular products, or whatever the case may be. And we didn't, like landscaping was a big one. There's a lot of hard cost in landscaping. Hardscape was more specifically, right? And they're like, oh yeah, my costs are up 30%, whatever. And what was happening now in the last 6 months, those prices have come down. People have gotten creative about fulfillment and figured out better ways to get the costs down, and not just the product cost, but the shipping cost, the combination of the two. impacts your overall price. But some owners, business owners, were not doing a good job of checking with their vendors and finding out what the options were.
Yeah.
So consequently, they're still paying a higher price than they needed to be paying because they're not diligently looking and shopping around. So one of the things that I was recommending is like, hey, there's always been this strategy. I think everybody's familiar with it. Is the idea get three prices, right? Shop it around and get 3 bids on a particular product or solution or service or whatever the case would be, because you don't know. And quite honestly, depending on what it is that you're purchasing, there's a huge variation of what you can be paying for the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think you bring up a good point too about, I mean, week to week, the cost of goods can fluctuate. I mean, I think about, I've got friends that do framing or roofing, and just the cost of wood alone, right? Or even building materials, things like that, or technology, right? Things that used to be really inexpensive are now, 400% price increase. So I think, making sure that, going back to your topic on, kind of cost estimating and doing that for different jobs, or if you're in manufacturing, right, or whatever, making sure you're routinely analyzing those increasing costs, and really could be week to week or even day to day on some of those items. So I think it's a great point.
Absolutely. And one of the things is you're talking about, what can we do in a situation like this? Well, if you have the cash flow, one of the things would be buy deeper on stuff you're going to use, right? If there's things that you're going to use that on a regular basis, and you get a good deal on it, spend the extra money, go deeper on it, and make sure you have it, because it's not only is it a cost, like an added cost, like higher than normal, but in addition to that, so if you need a better deal, then take advantage of it. But the other thing is we still have not completely worked out all the fulfillment issues. Right. So if there's something that, I can buy today that may be out of stock in 30 days, and I'm going to need that for jobs coming up in the preceding months, I might want to go a little deeper there too. It's like we've probably the 10 years leading up to COVID, there was a lot of emphasis on just-in-time inventory, but that was all based on everything working the way it's supposed to. Yeah, exactly. And that's great until that doesn't work, and then it's like you get a ship stuck in the Panama Canal for, I don't know, a few weeks. That kind of messes some stuff up for a while, and then we saw what kind of impact that had. And then you have all these ships out in the ports, for days, in some cases even a month, just sitting out there with your product on it, and you're waiting for it to close a deal. I mean, I can't imagine how many businesses were actually impacted by that, to the point where they had to shut down, even temporarily, let alone permanently, because of those types of delays and things like that. So as a strategic business owner, you need to kind of look at that and say, okay, well, what can I do to try and buffer that?
Yeah.
There was just side note, really healthy conversation the other day on a YouTube channel that I can't remember which one it was now. I apologize, but they were talking very specifically about fulfillment in regards that more and more people are looking for business owners that buy product to fulfill for their business. They're choosing to go somewhere other than China, which has been a sensitive topic for years, but they're looking, even harder at India and other places in the Pacific. Is it Pacific Island? No, it's not Pacific Island. But Taiwan, Taiwan, Korea, other solutions like that to get around even just the government imposed sanctions. What are they?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. The ones that Trump put in place. But the point is that people are looking harder and harder for better solutions to offset and reduce costs, right? And it's becoming a bigger and bigger topic, even after COVID.
Yeah. Tariffs, I think, is the word you were searching
Tariffs,
for.
Thank you. I was stuck there. I couldn't think of it. Thank you.
All good. So what I think it's interesting, you're talking about two different things, and I think it's important if we just break them down to kind of two different problems for a second. So one is, you might still be able to get something at a higher cost, right? And even if you plan for that and you budget for it and adjust your, your job estimates and all that, you can get around that. But there's still two other problems you got to navigate. One is it may take you longer to get the things you need to do the job to make the product, right? So that's kind of one big issue that you're talking about here, whether that's logistics or whatever it may be. The other is, and I think maybe spend a little time on this, you may not be able to get it at all, right? And we've seen that where you just couldn't get stuff, even if you had the money, even if you had all the time to wait to get it. That product doesn't exist anymore. Maybe the company went under, or they just liquidated their inventory, moved on to something else, and don't carry that product line. So we see that a lot too. So any advice on that as we think about it, maybe from whether it's a marketing standpoint or just inventory or just business strategy? What about that scenario of you can't get that product anymore that you rely on as part of your product mix? What do you do about that?
Well, and that's kind of where I was getting at with that last statement, is really looking at there are other solutions, right? We go to certain ones because it's the easy one. It's the one we're already familiar with. It's the lowest priced one. But again, going back to that analogy I used earlier, having 3 different vendor solutions that you kind of shop around and do your due diligence, and when you don't need it, that's probably the best message I can share. When you don't need it is when you should be doing your research,
right?
Not when you found out that your vendor said, "Yeah, sorry, I don't have it," right? And it's not necessarily a knock on the vendor per se. It's just you being a disciplined business owner and recognizing that. We've seen it happen a couple of times. It's probably a good idea for us to have a good solution as a backup, right?
Yeah.
For instance, I know recently here in Arizona, there's a manufacturing facility that opened in just south of Phoenix. I can't remember the name of the town, Casa Grande. And it's a huge facility they're building, and the idea is it's to bring more manufacturing jobs back to the United States, right? They put it in an area, part of the state where it's you probably get closer to minimum wage, right? People to do these jobs, and so you can be more cost effective with the production. And honestly, if you shopped around, you may pay 10 or 15% more, but if you don't have to deal with the shipping rates or even just bringing stuff over in freight from across the border from Mexico, even, you can have it produced here and know that you're going to get it in 24, 48 hours, as opposed to have to coordinate 2 weeks. So I guess the answer, not ideal necessarily, but really we should always be looking at what are the best options and solutions. And it's often, as a small business owner, you don't necessarily have the resources to invest, but you've got to carve out the time to do your due diligence and find out what the solutions are before they become problems. Because once your primary vendor shuts down their doors, that you're going to jump through hoops trying to figure that out. If that's a primary product, if that's one of your key things that you need, you're going to have a number of people. They're all vying for that, which is what we've seen on a couple of occasions now. And that's what I said before. I'm sure there's a number of businesses that still haven't reopened because of some of the impact that we saw for that period of time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it kind of brings to mind, and my world's all training, which there's a lot of software involved with it. But one of the things that I've done for years that speaks to your point is every year doing kind of a vendor review, right? So there's, a couple big names that it's kind of hard to get away from. They make the best software and it does, all the cool things, and you're kind of locked into that. But occasionally a new guy will come along and offer something that's pretty comparable or does, 75% of what the big guy does. And you can get it for a much smaller price because they're trying to break into that market and they're trying to take share away from the big guy. Or you may find, there's a different solution that didn't exist. I mean, technology in particular, right? If your business uses technology at all, and I know we're both big advocates of that, automating and everything else, there may be totally new solutions that weren't even around a year ago that you can now, sign up for. And again, it can be very cost effective, or if nothing else, maybe it's more, you keep it in your back pocket. But you know that you've got another option if all of a sudden, something goes down, and you can apply that to anything, but I'm thinking specifically about, tech vendors. And I think just the last thing is we've all been there. And one of the things I found kind of twofold is I always do my review at the end of the year. So one of the reasons I do that is somebody's always trying to make their quota, and we've lived in that world, right? And so you can get a lot better discounts. The second is if you find something that you think could work, and you let your current vendor that you're with, again, software, whatever it may be, have got this other guy who's got a better price, I think I'm going to go with him. They may suddenly find a way to discount that service, or fill that pain point that's causing you to look elsewhere. So even if you end up keeping what you got, you might be able to leverage a competitor to get a better price. So definitely a lot of things to think about there.
Yeah, great point. And that's a great strategy in the sense that we used to joke for years in the wireless industry, when was the last time somebody reached out to you and said, hey, I want to lower your cell phone bill?
Right.
And the irony is that honestly, that when I first got into the industry, that was my whole selling point. I'm like, look, I will reach out to you and I will let you know if there's a better plan that you should be on. Is it okay if I do that?
Yep.
Sure, Eric, I'd love to know if there's a better plan, it's a better rate, or whatever the case may be. And so what I've already done now is long before we had CRMs to really manage it, at least at a store level, like I'm talking about when I still did it with a 3-ring binder, right, in Excel spreadsheets. And I've got customers committing to me like, Eric, feel free to call me anytime and tell me you're going to save me money. Well, that just opens the door for me to sell follow-up sales to you, right? And so as a business owner with recurring client business, what a great opportunity to leverage that and say, hey, once a year I'm going to check in with you and just make sure everything's okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm getting a little bit more in marketing and sales, but the idea is it's not much different than what you just suggested, because at the end of the year you're assessing your vendors, right? And by doing that, and say, hey, I've got this solution. It's very comparable. Give me a good reason to stay with you.
Yeah.
And they all have save opportunities. They all have, they're all trying to keep their client base, especially in a competitive industry like tech, for that matter, right? Yeah. Where there's new stuff coming out all the time, and there's going to be things that are going to be very aggressive, or companies that are going to come to market and be very aggressive and try and take that market share.
Yeah.
Likewise, going back to talking about cost of goods sold, right? There are vendors out there that are manufacturing the same products, recognizing all the problems that happen in the last 2 years with fulfillment and cost effectiveness in manufacturing. There's companies that now we're past those issues. They're like, how do we solve that problem going forward? And they're coming to market. The problem is they're still trying to penetrate the market. They're still trying to get it to the average Joe, so to speak, that's running a business. And we haven't seen it yet. But if you take the time to do the research, they're out there.
Yeah.
And they want your business.
Yeah.
But a great way to leverage that opportunity in that relationship.
Absolutely. No, and I think an interesting note on this too is it's a little bit of a double-edged coin, because while you can leverage that to get, better deals, better contracts, new vendors yourself, you got to think about your clients, your customers. They're potentially doing the same thing. And so one of the metrics I know you and I care about a lot is, of course, new customer acquisition, but also, reorders, or, continual sales, right? Whatever that looks like in your industry. But if you start to see those dipping, hey, we're not acquiring as many new customers, or the customers we do have, our clients are not ordering as much. They're not, re-upping with us as often as they should. We're seeing a lot of, contracts not getting renewed, and people are moving to month, right? Again, could be a number of different businesses impacted there, but that's an important thing that you got to keep an eye on too, and make sure you're staying competitive and you're not losing customers who are doing the same thing to you that you're doing to these vendors. So any thoughts on that, Eric?
Yeah, totally. And as you say that, my mind goes in about 9 different directions. Because, first and foremost, to your point, one, we know the old analogy, right? It costs quite a bit more to acquire a new client than it does to retain an existing client.
Yep.
And one of the things, again, looking back at my client base and reminding my clients, how important it is to stay front of mind, even with your existing clients. They may be buying from you, but when was the last time that you reached out to them and reminded them of everything that you do? Not just, like, what do you do for them now, right? This is how we serve you here. I can't remember the company I got an email from the other day. It was like, just to remind you, these are all the things that we're doing to improve your experience.
Nice.
Right. And they're consciously reaching out and providing that insight. And I'm like, you know what? I forgot that they do that. It's like, that's a great selling technique, even if it's just more of a save strategy than a selling technique. But I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. They do that. And that's, if somebody else was reaching out to me trying to retain my services for that particular service in that scenario, then, they'd be like, well, yeah, but I'm thinking about that. And I'm like, you know what? They do that and they do a good job of it. I'm actually happy with it.
Yeah.
So, so to really kind of expound on that, to your point, in a down economy, you don't want to be losing clients.
Right.
You've already spent the money to get them in the door. Even if you sold them at 10% over cost, even if you retain them at 10% over cost, you're still continuing to bring in profitable revenue.
Right.
That would be a better scenario than losing clients to somebody else who's coming to the market and being super aggressive and trying to steal them away. Because I can guarantee you, if they acquired them at 10% over cost versus you retaining them at 10% over cost, they're losing. You're not.
Yeah. Just real quick on that. That can be hard though, right? Because now we get ego, we get pride,
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't care if my product's the best. If you don't want to pay for it, screw you, go somewhere else. I mean, those things come into play here, but ultimately, right, we got to keep the eye on the bottom line. So just as you're saying that, I imagine somebody out there listening that, well, if they don't see the value in my product, I'm happy to lose them, right? And we
absolutely
all maybe thought but you can't.
Yeah, and part of that comes down to what depending on your product or service, what's your strategy? I mean, if you're a high-end product, right, and your brand warrants and commands that pricing, you can do that. Most of my clients don't have those types of
right.
Not when I start working with them anyway. They're literally competing on price in most cases, and often that is their biggest challenge. They haven't determined what their market dominating position is. And because of that, they're competing on price, and they're competing side by side with many different solutions, competitors, and consequently, they're getting beat because they're trying to fight. They're fighting their way to the bottom to acquire clients. Where so to your point, if somebody's got something and they feel very confident they can command that price point, by all means, keep it there, because that's you've already begun to win half that battle, right? Now, you may lose people in a time like this because of depending on the product or service you're providing, may not be in high demand. Or not demand. What's the word I would say? It's not necessary, right?
Yeah.
It's a benefit. It's a luxury. A luxury. Thank you. Yeah, it's a luxury, not a necessity. And if you're selling a luxury product, well, generally speaking, the people that you're selling to probably aren't feeling the pinch the way others might be.
Right.
So you can continue to command that price and hold that price point. But a lot of small business owners haven't found that niche yet, haven't determined how to, what that market dominating position is to allow them to hold that price point. So, but take the average person that's struggling with the economy the way that it is. Most of them are competing on price, which is why they're in the situation that they're in, and why a 20% dip in the market is going to bury them.
Right. Well, and you're right? Because the pricing strategy isn't just about the product and the consumer; it's about the conditions in the market. And if you're not adjusting your pricing to an uncertain, a down market, whatever market you're happen to be watching this or listening to this in, your pricing strategy needs to incorporate what's happening in the market too. And if not, you're going to get steamrolled. I mean, really.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, I think just along with that, Eric, you were kind of talking about, kind of that touch base or that, marketing to your existing customer and how important that is. And certainly there's some technology that can help you with drip campaigns or, reminders or, texts with, discounts, coupons, or, hey, save 20%, sign up for a year in advance, right? All those sorts of things. So those are really good. I also think that making sure that you're reaching out to those clients that are on the edge is really important. And just to share an example on that, I was, going back to the software, I recently switched vendors for a software that we utilize, and it's about a $30,000 a year commitment for this particular, vendor and software. I never once got a call from the account manager to say, hey, why are you switching or what can I do? I mean, it was literally just hey, here's the link to cancel, and going a different way, and literally no attempt to save, no attempt to reach out. And so I just that experience is recent in my mind. So compared to what you're talking about, like, hey, just a reminder, here's all the stuff that we do that maybe you forgot that we do for you. It was just here's the link to cancel. I mean, it was just nothing, no attempt to save. So that resonates with me, because you may not even know that your customers are looking, but as soon as you find out that somebody's on the edge, or knows, hey, this guy normally orders 50 widgets a month and he's only ordering 20, what's going on? You got to be proactive, or have your sales team reach out and follow up with those customers, because it's going to be a very short path between where they are now and in the hands of your competitor. So just sharing that, because literally just happened a week ago in my life.
Yeah, great point. I we have a client that I can tell you very specifically, going back to 2008, didn't make some very specific, unique adjustments that they should have made in their business, and consequently, fast forward over the next 10 years, right, from that point until 2018, the business just dwindled, right, dipped precipitously, right, year over year over year over year. And consequently, they get into 2018, 2019, and they employ my services, and I come in and I start helping them make some adjustments, and then boom, COVID hits.
Yep.
Well, it's like you're trying to rebuild the business, and you get a hit like that. I mean, that's going to bury just about any business at that point.
Absolutely.
Luckily, we've been able to weather the storm, and they're making some adjustments. But to your point, when you have when you're not doing those little things to win your customers over, when you don't make the phone call and say, hey David, I noticed you normally buy 50 widgets, you only bought 20. Is there a particular reason? There's something going on, something I can help you with? Just even asking the simple question. They may not be honest with you, they may not share with you, but they may. And if they do, how valuable is that insight?
Yeah.
Right, but you won't get it if you're not willing to ask the question, right? I mean, that's an age-old sales strategy, right? You can't hurt by asking, right? You ask, you don't know where you are in the sales process until you start asking for the trial close. So the reality is, in a scenario like this, where you've got a client who's backing off for whatever reason, you don't ask the question, you don't know how you can help them.
Right.
And that's that in itself, right? It shows that you care. It shows that you value their business. But just sitting on the back end, and you have nothing else to go off of other than they're buying their product somewhere else, and that's going to be your gross assumption.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
And if they are, what value would there be in actually understanding why they're buying somewhere else?
Yeah, you're right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Is it quality? Is it cost? Or maybe the flip side is, hey, their sales are down, therefore they're not buying as much from you. That may tell you, I need to go acquire a couple more clients to offset the one I'm about to lose when their business folds, right? So
absolutely. Yeah. A great point there. And for instance, that particular company, 2018, 2019, well, guess what started happening in 15, 16, 17? Amazon.
Yeah.
Had a bigger and bigger impact every year. Remember, we would recap Christmas sales, right, in our old industry. And we're talking about, oh, look at the impact, and then we keep saying Amazon or Walmart or the online sales have eclipsed retail sales for the first time in history, right? And I'm like, oh, well, guess what? Guess where your clients are buying their product from now?
Right.
Amazon. Yeah, and because they deliver overnight.
Yeah, or now same day, which is insane.
Yeah, same day, depending on where you're at. And so my conversation was, well, what could you do to offset that?
Yeah.
Right? Is there something we can put in place? Because it wasn't necessarily pricing, quite honestly, competitive. The product competitively online wasn't necessarily a better product, but they could get it faster.
Yeah.
And that's what they were willing to pay for. And I'm like, well, then, let's talk about how we can solve that problem.
Yeah. Right.
You can do drop shipping or something like that. And so, but you don't ask, you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've talked about a lot of things, Eric. We've talked about, keeping an eye on your costs. We've talked about fulfillment. We've talked about shipping. We've talked about, some key indicators, sales trends, things like that. Looking at, alternative vendors, touching base with your existing clients. One of the things we haven't talked about, though, that I think is really important, and we're seeing, I think, more than I've ever seen in the last 15, 20 years, is employees. And so
People.
in an uncertain economy, right, it's really important that we are intentional about employee relationships and retention. So any thoughts on that, because that's important in this puzzle too.
Yeah, and I think we probably hit on this a couple of times already, just because it's a similar, a sensitive, relevant topic. There we go. Yeah, the more that we talk about people, the more it becomes very clear to me that we're in a very unique market when it comes to people. I don't think that I haven't, in the 30 some odd years that I've been in business, I don't think I've ever experienced a market quite like this. You go from the great resignation to the massive tech layoffs, which is where most of the jobs were for the last number of years. And now we're kind of pivoting into a scenario where we got a lot of questions, with the economy downsizing, but the economy pulling back, retracting. I suspect that we're going to see some more of that. We saw the retail kind of transition and more fewer opportunities in that industry. So what would be interesting moving forward is it's going to get super competitive for good quality talent. And as a business owner, small or big, as a business owner, you really need to be willing to invest in your people. I think that was one of the things, I know it was one of the things that our previous employer, that those who invested in their people, both financially and from a collective conscious effort to help improve skill sets, paid more money, and oh, by the way, we taught them how to be better at their jobs. Even if that meant that made them so much better that they were able to go somewhere else with those talents, being willing to invest in your people at that level like that creates a loyalty, and it creates the kind of employee that wants to grow and develop with the company.
Right.
And so and that's a big piece. I mean, generally speaking, you look at big companies and you're like, oh, they have the money to spend on that. Well, as a small company, we can't not afford to invest in that.
Right.
Because you're not going to be competitive. You're going to lose out to the best quality talent every time if you don't find a way to make that. And it doesn't have to be super expensive. You just have to figure out a way to provide that value that your employees need. Right. And so whether that's a sales training investment or, some other type of technical skill set that would be beneficial to your employees, certainly money is a component, but that's not always, you know that better than I do, probably. Money's not always the major driver for people.
Yeah.
But taking the time to understand even your people, just like we talked about with the clients, right? Take the time to understand what's important to them, and then finding a way to bridge that gap will help create the loyalty that you need in a tough market like this. I don't think there's a lot of people running to go work for big companies unless they're younger right now, at least in my experience, unless they're younger and they're looking for those first jobs, right? Let me go work for a big company. I went to school, I got my degree, now let me go get my job. But there's a lot of people that are 30 and 40 years old. They're like, okay, I did that for a few years now. I'm not really excited about that experience. Let me go find something that's more fulfilling. Yeah. And that's where I think that the small business industry really has the opportunity to capitalize on some quality talent, like we discussed in the previous show. The challenge is going to be is the business owner willing to make the investment to really entice those people, and more specifically retain those people so that they have somewhere to go and something meaningful for them to do within the organization.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's an important point. And like you said, it's not always money. Now, money's important, right? Everybody knows that, right? But there's also, things that we don't always think about, whether that's work schedule, or it could be, paid time off, or there's other things that you actually might have an advantage against larger companies on, who can't, have these crazy PTO policies or custom work schedules and things like that. But for this current generation that's entering the workforce and is making an increasingly larger presence in the workforce, right, things like well-being, mental wellness, overall health, right? Those are things that matter as much or more than money does. So I think thinking about those things too are really important. Hey, pay for their gym membership every month. What's it, $30? I don't know. I don't go to the gym
Right.
as
Well,
often.
and you probably, yeah, and you can probably get a deal by signing up 10 or 20 people, right? I mean,
Totally. Yeah.
Companies, right?
Yep. So it's
Yeah.
little things like that I think are important, and just the relationship, right? Is at the end of the day, people have bills to pay, but they're also maybe even willing to take that slightly lower paycheck if they feel like their leader really cares about them. If you as the business owner really care about them, don't undervalue the impact of that relationship. Now don't be the cliche like, I'm going to throw you a pizza party instead of giving you a 10% raise, right? That you see all over Instagram and everything else, but really care about people and look for ways to individualize that relationship and impact that specific person, because individualization is really the future of this workforce and what matters most to them. So I think we got to be aware of that, along with pay, which is always important. So thanks, Eric.
The one last thing I want to add to that, and I think that one of our upcoming shows, one of the things we need to really talk about is AI and the impact that's going to have in 2023. I've been doing a significant amount of research for some of my clients in regards to AI and the impact that's going to have in a number of. We made the assumption, the gross assumption, that it was just going to impact low-level, entry-level jobs, and that's not the case.
Right.
AI has come a long way in a short period of time. Again, go back to I can't remember the guy's name. I quote it all the time. The technology, how quickly it evolves, and so now we're at a point where it's like it was based on chip technology at the time, but Moore's law. Sorry, it says that chip technology at the time was but it plays out in our technology as a whole. Every 18 months, the technology doubles. We watched that play out for the period of time that we were in the wireless industry. I think you were in like 15 years or something like that. You can attest to that. You saw the impact that it had in our industry. You take AI where it was 5 years ago, and you look at what it's capable of doing today, and the company just made it free.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Is it Chat GPT or something like that? I can't remember the name. I think we should do our next session on that, because it's going to be a big deal in 2023, 2024 about how to impact call centers, sales organizations, customer service, call centers. There's a lot of pieces that are going to play out. Copywriting, right? Marketing services are going to change dramatically. Agencies that have been being able to charge a lot of money now are going to have to pivot and make adjustments. And these are a lot of the people that are my clients today, that this is going to have some dramatic impact. And so you've got people out there going back to kind of addressing people. You got people out there that technology is going to replace some of these people in these key roles, and they're going to have to figure out where they fit in the new economy.
Right.
So I think there's a lot more to it than that. And and in a down economy, all the more reason, if the biggest cost in a service-based business is labor, and I can find ways to reduce my labor costs by incorporating some technical solutions, right? This is what happened in 08, 09, and 10. We heard all these lean companies, and there was so much focus on being a lean organization. And that was something we talked about every year for about 3 or 4 years, right?
Yeah.
We're going to see the same thing. It's going to play out again. And even more so now, right? Because you're not only are reeling from COVID, but now we have this economic downturn that could be 12, 16, 18, 20 months, whatever that looks like. People are going to have to make adjustments, and businesses are going to have to make adjustments, and that's going to have an impact on people. And they're going to have to figure out where they fit in and what they're going to have to adjust to do that. So, not to paint the ugly picture, but I think that it's important to be honest with ourselves so that we can make better decisions.
Yeah, awesome. It's a great future topic.
Yep.
Well, I know I think we've covered a lot of ground with this topic here today. Just in terms of kind of My Biz Coaches, anything new or noteworthy happening over there that you want to talk to the audience about?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. And we're really excited about 2023. Got some great new clients as we kind of finished out the year. Big influx of business, actually a record month in December, so we're excited about that. We're even more excited as we move into 2023 because we're looking to bring on as many as 20 new coaches.
Awesome.
Yeah, so very excited about that. We'll probably do a small lift here in the first quarter and look to bring on the rest in the back half of the year. But yeah, we're definitely excited about that. The growth, the brand is building. People are recognizing more and more what we bring to the table. I'm actually paying. I have a company I'm working with right now that's reaching out to all my favorite clients. All my clients are my favorite. Sorry, reaching out to my ideal clients, and they're determining, what is it that people are excited about working with My Biz Coaches. And,
awesome.
And we're using that in our marketing strategy and how we move forward in targeting the right clients for our services. So it's been an interesting experience. Obviously, I go through that with my own clients, but it's always interesting when you have to do it on yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So we're super excited about the growth this year. We're expecting some pretty substantial, and I have some clients that are already experiencing great growth in a down economy. Right. So that's even more enticing to me. But that's the kind of things that happen when you pivot correctly and you recognize what's going on. You're honest about where you are and recognize, okay, these are the things that are changing. I need to change accordingly, and then capitalize on them while everybody else is trying to figure out what's going on.
Awesome.
So, yep. Appreciate that.
Exciting.
How about yourself, David?
No, yeah, we're excited. 2023. We got some stuff coming, Eric. I don't want to tee it up just yet. I know you want.
Okay, all right. We'll save that for next time.
Yeah, I'm gonna save it for next time, and yeah, it's gonna be awesome. But in the meantime, if anybody wants to meet with you, one of your coaches, or maybe one of your 20 new coaches, where can they learn more about My Biz Coaches?
Yeah, just mybizcoaches.com. That's they go in there, check us out. We have the new website is weeks away at this point, so I'm super excited about that. Just a few weeks away, we've got the great new. I'm excited about that. The platform will be awesome. But yeah, My Biz Coaches, go check it out. We offer that 45-minute consultation. It's a free consultation to assess your business and at minimum, even if you don't retain our services, you'll at least get some great insight, executable insight that you can go and take back and implement in your business immediately.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, hey, if you want to learn more about the TLG group, head over to trainleadgrow.com or connect with us on social media. Just look for @trainleadgrow on your favorite platform of choice. And we've got some great social content out there. Would love to engage with you on our social media community. So until next time, don't miss future episodes. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow on however you're watching or listening to this. We'd love to make sure you get alerted to future episodes, whether it's AI or another topic that's of interest to you. We do a couple of these a week, so definitely a lot of great content coming out soon. So don't miss it. Make sure you subscribe today, and we'll see you next time on the Biz Coach Show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, David.